righty, so why don't we get going? We have 23 so far, and it's climbing. So
Okay.
so we'll start, and then we'll hopefully get up to our magic number that we normally have, unless people don't want to hear from the referees. So anyway, welcome to our MSYSA webinar. I'm Mark Cantor. I'm your president. We really appreciate you guys phoning in and joining us every other week. We try to be as informative as possible, try to give you as much information that we have. We always have a guest speaker. We have one today, which is going to be an interesting take because it's going to be the take from the referee side. And I think a lot of people should be interested to hear about what the referees are doing and thinking about the present and future with this COVID-19 issue. This is a recorded webinar. For everyone who's on that's not speaking, please listen in the mute mode. That way we don't hear disruptions when someone's trying to chat. And if you have a question, the easiest way to do it is just under the chat, just type in your question and we'll try to answer it throughout the webinar when we have the time in between speakers. And during, for example, when Jimmy Graham, the SYRA, who's on our board, is discussing the referees, if you have any questions during that time, type in your question and we'll ask Jimmy and hopefully he'll be able to answer it. Last thing is to be respectful, and when you do decide to talk, please announce yourself and your affiliation before you speak so we know who's chatting. So just wanted to briefly update everybody. You know that we do have a WhatsApp page that Alan Lydier is the administrator. That's always an up-to-date information. A lot of people use it for chat and asking questions, and typically a lot of people will be able to answer your questions on that WhatsApp page for MSYSA. We try to update that as much as possible, as well as our website. Some of you from Montgomery County, after a lot of lobbying, we were excited to report, most of you probably know, that soccer has gone from high risk to medium risk, but there's a caveat with that, meaning that they are requesting that the players wear, and the coaches and the referee all wear masks, which is going to be a tough haul, but you got to go with it. It's luckily getting from high risk to medium was a big deal, especially in Montgomery County. For those that live here, it's very hard to have things change. So we'll chat more about that in the webinar. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today. Jimmy Graham is the state youth representative for the referees. He actually has a seat on our board and is very active in the state of Maryland, not only with referees, but all the different decisions that happen throughout the state. So Jimmy was kind enough to spend time with us today and kind of give everyone a little bit of an idea from the referee perspective of what they're doing protocol-wise, how they feel things are going to be changing in the future, and a lot of other issues. So Jimmy, appreciate you coming on, and you have it now. It's yours.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. What a wonderful introduction, especially for something like this in the time that we're in. I want to let everybody know I've broken this little presentation down into 3 parts. A little bit about who I am, about about the history of Maryland officiating in general, and what the status has been over the past several years. Highlight some success stories, and then I wanted to end with what Mark had so eloquently put is where we are right now, both from a referee community as well as the many other things that go on. So, who am I? A lot of people ask that question. Sometimes they get a good response from me, sometimes not so good, depending upon whether we're on the field or not. I'm currently a registered regional referee, formerly state referees that are known. I also am a state referee coach and mentor. I've been officiating for 30 some odd years and have a wide gamut of experience all the way from the youth to the major adult level. Uh, my administrative aspect of my business or my job had started in 2014 when I was approached to become the referee representative of the adjudication committee for MSYSA. Very proud to serve with Jim Rubin and Willie Ibarra on that committee, as well as other administrative board members. We happily saw a large decrease, I should say, of reports coming in about referee abuse and challenges to various tournament decisions over my tenure during that time. I think in 2019, we met one time, and it was not based on a referee abuse situation. What my primary job is to interface between all the Maryland referees, the state referee committee, MSYSA, and the East region. We all know about ODP, President's Cup, state cups, and the various national championship series, leagues, and where we travel and what we go. My job is to get referees put together to travel to those tournaments, to gain experience, to meet friends, to build a camaraderie amongst ourselves, and then take that camaraderie back to their particular state over time. Just as an aside, what I do full time is I work for the federal government in the cybersecurity area. How many of how many of us are there? In 2019, Maryland had 2,500 registered referees. That drastically changed this year, where we're just over 1,900 registered referees. Why the change? Well, we think Safe Sport had some things to do with it. Safe Sport, we all know, is a requirement of not only coaches and administrative staff, it's even tied to the referees. We also had some requirement changes in the training mechanism from U.S. Soccer, which may have sort of helped down or help decrease the folks that said, I just don't want to be bothered with this anymore. Is Maryland alone? No, we're not. As we have the best to figure out, we believe referee registration is down nationally, probably 30 to 35%. There are various reasons for that. Safe Sport could just be one piece. It could be due to local issues in the various states. But what we do know is that nationally, all referee registration is down for soccer. I'd also like to note at the board meeting, the MSYSA board meeting about a week ago, we discussed some of the Safe Sport issues. And we are currently working with 300 or so referees who have not completed their Safe Sport training and will not be allowed to step onto the field. So there's a variety of issues that we're trying to deal with there. What do we do in Maryland? Well, Maryland is ripe with a lot of officiating success. If I start from the bottom, there are currently 3 national referees. Those referees you probably have seen in State Cup, President's Cup, and ODP within the last 4 or 5 years. We currently have 4 MLS referees in refereeing those matches down in the tournament, so forth, the MLS tournament, so forth. And we have 2 current FIFA ARs, one of which I believe Katie Nesbitt has refereed the MLS final as an assistant referee. But I will say that the star is there because she has recently moved to Pennsylvania. She was a chemistry teacher teaching at Towson in Baltimore. And then found, I think, a better job or a teaching position in Pennsylvania. We also have 3 national coaches. So we have a wide breadth of information, and those national coaches are either former FIFA referees or national referees. So when we talk about how that applies to young referees, the state of Maryland has about 4 to 6 annual tournaments every year for which we choose to send these representatives that I previously talked about to go watch referees, whether they or of teenage status or young person status, or even some who just want to better their officiating talent. We do state cup mentoring. So we depend upon this experience coming back. We try to give back to not only to the referee community, but in turn that benefits the overall soccer community. Now, for State Cup, the mentoring part is actually very important because we start at the quarterfinals of State Cup and try and mentor every single match for every single age group that I think has 3 referees. So if I'm correct, the U12 and the U11s only use 1 referee in the State Cup. I might be wrong about that. This is my my first time through this, and we kind of canceled everything. So I'm still in kind of a learning process. So where are we today? As we all know, games are far and few between, but we absolutely are hearing that the many tournaments that have been scheduled for the August to November timeframe are still on schedule today. I haven't heard much in terms of cancellation. So we have the big issue of all the county issues that we're dealing with. And we have Charles County doing something different than Baltimore County, doing something different than Howard County. And of course, as we all know now, Montgomery County is changing almost on a daily basis. So this is going to lead into the discussion probably with my next slide. But I wanted to touch just a little bit about what we're doing in terms of training. You know, all grassroots training has been suspended. So we can no longer provide in-person training for the remainder of the year. And I believe the coaches are in that same boat. What we do in terms of preparing is ad hoc mentoring training. And that is mostly fitness events, where a group of advanced referees or more experienced referees will come together and do just fitness training, general mobility training, stretching, things of that nature. Socially distanced, of course, but we just get together also to try and continue the contact and discussions that goes on within the group. Most of our advanced referees are ready to go. We're looking to try and get as many folks up into this as possible to spread the wealth, so to speak. And we'll just have to see how things progress. So how can we elicit your help? I just discussed a couple of minutes ago that the vast majority of our issues are going to be locality based. I would like to request that folks just keep in mind, you know, your referee that shows up at a game that's scheduled may not be from the county you're playing in. We're going to provide guidance to the referees about how to deal with this kind of thing. The guidance will be to socially distance with the coaches maybe just a couple of minutes before the game to recap any local or specific competition interests and whose responsibility they are. We were just joking around with Flo and Mark just prior to the start of this, and it's absolutely correct that, you know, our job is not to count the number of participants. We'll elicit some of the coaches' help and maybe even field marshals' help if that's going to happen in terms of the tournaments and things of that nature. But it would really, really help to have a discussion with your referee prior to the match, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. I have a history of sort of chatting too much when I officiate, but I view it as a communication mechanism, because even we may even disagree on a particular decision, but if I can explain to you how I came to that decision, I think the explanation and the communication helps diffuse a lot of the things that come up. So we're talking about Baltimore County. Currently, nothing's going on there. We all know the venue issues that are going on with Howard County in terms of not being able to access any of the school fields, things of that nature. I've heard earlier in the week, Charles County is completely shut down. As well as there's a strange situation going on in St. Mary's County. If you thought Montgomery County was weird with the masks, my understanding is that St. Mary's teams cannot leave the county to participate in a match. However, teams outside of St. Mary's County can enter St. Mary's to participate. Now, I have to admit that came from a local assigner down there. I failed to find out if that's either sanctioned matches or just a rec law. But you know, these county issues or these locality issues are going to be the big thing, the hardest thing to deal with as we return to play. Future considerations. I have always expressed, and I think I may have done it on one or two of these seminars, through this environment and this time, we have heard, oh, we'll just push everything back to the spring so that you'll have all your fall sports participate in the spring. I have not been shy to share my opinion that I am very concerned about that. Just from a pure sports officials aspect, not necessarily strictly from soccer. Many of our officials nowadays on all our leagues are independent contractors, which means they can do whatever they want basically and accept or decline games as it fits their schedule. Many sports officials officiate more than one sport. And this could be a problem in the spring when we have things like colleges participating and rec participating all at the same time, football, basketball, baseball. A lot of sports officials will just go to where the money is, and that could be somewhat detrimental to the sports officiating community as a whole. But I do think things are going to get better. I have always tried to have a positive and optimistic outlook on things. I do think that we will eventually be able to sort through these issues, but it absolutely will take us as a community together to sort of deal with incidents and try and our best to just work through them and learn. That's the other important thing. When I first started officiating, I was scared. But you know, the experience and the learning process that you go through helps build confidence. It helps build the ability to manage things, and you know, that's really what I'm looking for as we move in the future. So I didn't think I was going to take an hour.
Any questions? We have one. Ashley wanted to chat with us quickly about the protocol that's happened in St. Mary's. Are you there, Ashley?
Mark, Rick, what?
Yeah, Mark, it's actually Rick. It's my daughter's computer. So
Oh.
I changed the name on it though, so you guys don't think it's. Yeah, no, we are able to travel outside of the county, and we're just not allowed to host games right here currently. And so we're using, we're in the process of making arrangements at Calverton, which is a private field in Calvert County, to be able to host, for lack of a better word, home games there. But we are able to travel outside of the county.
So Mark, did I just reverse that? I apologize for that.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, thanks for that clarification.
I'll be sure to let my daughter know. She's so active in St. Mary's soccer already.
All right. Any other comments, questions that you have for Jim before we move on?
Hey, Jimmy, this is Nathan.
Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
Good. I have a quick question. So obviously there are lots of variances from various different counties. Most of them don't fundamentally alter the laws of the game. They're just, you know, inconveniences, et cetera, et cetera. Baltimore County right now, it seems like, has outlawed throw-ins. So must-play kick-ins. How are the referees handling situations like that where the actual laws of the game are being changed?
So as I had mentioned a little earlier, with the locality issues going on, that kind of conversation, we're encouraging the referees to have discussions with coaches prior to kickoff. And that kind of makes it difficult when you're in a tournament situation, but we still are hoping that communication happens. We all know the grief that we all have given Massachusetts for their various sets of law changes. But when it comes to the variations, the only thing I have heard is that Baltimore County is the only county that has made that law change. So, like I said, since referees may be coming from, say, Howard County into Baltimore County, all we can do is really encourage a conversation prior to kickoff. We did jokingly have a discussion amongst the referee board whereby if the ball left play, technically, Baltimore County did not define how to restart, so we were going to end the game. Now, that conversation was in jest for that whole about 5 or 6 emails that floated around. But, communication is going to be the key. And, we'll have to take each county and match on a per county basis. We're educating folks when it comes to the law changes. To try and talk to your assigner as well. I failed to mention that the referee community is actually pretty larger than I think some people realize when we talk about assigners, administrators, referees, and things of that nature. There's a large number of folks involved to kick a game off and kick a season off as well. So I hope that answers your question, Nathan, but communication is always going to be the best.
One quick comment, Jimmy. What is the Referee Association doing to try to recruit some of these younger potential referees to try to bring them on?
Well, believe it or not, we find that prior to COVID, our young person referee count was actually very high. We have had several classes early in the year of 2020 whereby as an example, the class size was about 30. We found that most of our referees were under the age of 18. So 2/3 of the class were under the age of 18. Our biggest issue is retention. How do we keep these folks coming back? And to some extent, it's dealing with sometimes it is issues with conduct of staff, of some coaches, of players, things of that nature. But the vast majority of the time, I truly believe the young person's still interested in playing. I started my officiating career when I was 18 years old, but that was after I found out I could get paid to referee, but I wasn't going to get paid to play. So the retention is probably the larger issue that we're trying to deal with as an organization.
All right, great. All right, so with no other questions for Jimmy, we'd like to move on. Appreciate the information, Jimmy, by the way. It was very informative, and I hope everybody enjoyed getting that angle of soccer. Jessica Hafer is in charge of our registration for the state of Maryland. She's been working diligently to try to get everybody on board because as you all know, we're switching platforms. And so Jessica would like to give us an update of how things are going.
Hello, everybody. And yes, everything is going very smoothly. I'm sure you've all noticed a lot of little changes as you're navigating through getting your teams to our 2021 travel registration event. Please, again, reach out to me if you have any questions. As I look at who's attending, I've spoken to a lot of you and we're all moving along, but please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. Also, as you're going through the process, please write down any other little things that we can do to tweak the program so that we can make it even better. We do want the upgrades to process and make your time much quicker and the process to be more efficient. And please do not forget to let me know when you do submit a team. I know that there's a lot of tournaments coming up. So just let me know when you submit a team that's ready for approval, or if you have some things you want to go over before you submit a team, please reach out to me. Again, most of you have my number. It's 410-330-8692. So let me know, and we're here to help.
Great. Any questions before we move on? Okay, then we'll move on. Next, I'd like to have Flo Egan, our Executive Director, report on insurance and office hours.
I just have a couple of things. Beginning the Tuesday after Labor Day, we're obviously closed the Labor Day Monday, but our office hours will change. We're currently 9 to 5. Our office hours will change 8:30 to 4:30. What we're finding is by the time we get into the office at 9 o'clock, we're already behind the 8 ball with trying to answer emails and phone calls. It's much busier in the mornings as it is. We very rarely have anything between 4:30 and 5. So we wanted to shift the office hours a half hour to give people that are maybe on their way to work or what have you, and we can possibly answer questions and help them out. So beginning September 8th, we will be here in the office from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. The next thing I wanted to talk about was our insurance. Obviously, our insurance renews on September 1. Our insurance COIs are now available. I met with the insurance company, our insurance brokers yesterday. The COIs are now available for 2021 seasonal year. So anybody that got a temporary one to hold you over until we sign those new policies, they will now be able to issue you a COI for the seasonal year. Also, when I met with the insurance brokers, I asked them to please put together a document that I'm going to send to all the clubs and the club leadership that will have, it's a document, we're calling it Insurance at a Glance. It will give you, as a member club, it'll tell you what exactly you're covered for through MSYSA, including the limits of the general liability, the excess liability, bodily injury, and accident insurance. Also, it will spell out who is covered and what events are covered, because we get quite a few questions during the year, especially when claims come in. And we've had some claims where a player is a member of our association, but he got hurt and got injured in a high school game. Well, that's not something that's going to be covered under our insurance policies, but they are going to spell it out in just layman's terms and give you definitions as far as what exactly you're covered for, so that the clubs can then look at it themselves and decide if they need to get additional insurance, whether it's D&O, if you have a board, whether and employees, or whether it's cyber, whatever it is that, or maybe even additional liability if you choose. But it'll spell out in detail exactly what type of insurance coverage that you, your coaches, your players have through MSYSA. The other one thing that I had was that in talking with Dan earlier, we're hoping to get someone from the DC World Cup bid to come on and speak with us at a future webinar, just like Terry Hasseltine did from Baltimore. And Baltimore did launch their campaign on August 26th. Their whole theme has to do with the number 26. So they're looking for, so we want you to look for, updated media, how we as a soccer community can help to support within the next weeks. Because what they're doing now is launching this campaign so that when FIFA comes back in and determines the final cities, they can then show that, look, we have X amount of supporters in the state, and they want everyone to be counted, be included, and find different ways. Their social media, through their website, everything is Baltimore MD 2026. So and you can find anything that you want to participate in, support, whatever, and we'll be getting more stuff as we go along, because MSYSA is part of the, one of the partners that we're partnering with both Baltimore and DC to be able to support all of our members within our organization. That's all I have for this week.
All right, thanks, Flo. Next slide, please. So, one perspective that I feel that I wanted to bring up before we go into questions is I do believe that in Maryland as a whole, it does appear to me, based on what the governor's office has said over the last couple of days, this thing seemed to be lightening just a tad. You know, Montgomery County has you know, taken the player from high risk to medium. Governor Hogan has made a recommendation that he thinks that the schools should start reopening. The numbers in Maryland have been stable or low. That's the reason why the governor is starting to relax a lot of the restrictions. So I think if it continues, there looks to be like there's a light at the end of this long tunnel. And I'm kind of hopeful that as you know, the weeks and months go on, that Maryland is going to start opening up more and more. I'm hopeful for that to happen. So anybody have any questions that they like to discuss while we have everybody on?
Hey, Mark, it's Alan. Just after the questions, I just want to do a quick presentation on something that I've been working on for the club.
Alan, why don't we do it now? Because I didn't know you were on.
Yeah, sorry, I was on another call, so I managed to get on, so we didn't put it in the presentation.
You only have a minute because Jimmy took up too much time today.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and just quickly share my screen. Should be this one. Okay, you should be able to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, good. So I did mention it on the last call. Basically, I wanted to try and create a sort of resource center for grassroots. So essentially, this is primarily for, you know, if you have a recreational director or if you have a youth director, possibly up to year 12. This resource center is primarily for the leadership. So obviously the club leadership. And it's kind of centered around the 6 tasks within the grassroots, the USSF coaching education. So it's a Google Classroom. It's the easiest format for now. It may change over time, but essentially I just wanted to get it up and running and off the ground. And it'll tie in, I'll sort of explain how we're going to tie it all in, basically to a weekly newsletter that we can support the grassroots coaches with. So the primary focus right now, obviously the 6 tasks being leadership, managing the performance environment, where we're looking at obviously different environmental factors, whether it's I've added the weather charts for the USSF, but also I'll be adding in things like how to set up parents' meetings, that type of stuff. Leading the player, there's a couple of workshops, centered around nutrition and things like that. Setting goals. The main focus obviously is the training sessions, primarily for the grassroots or the sort of recreational or the entry level travel coach. There is basically a full season within each age group of what we call the play, practice, play methodology. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie each training session to a newsletter that will be released weekly as the season starts. So week 1 would be centered around building out of our own half. So it's a 6-week cycle or 6-week curriculum cycle that we'll push out in a newsletter. And in there, we'll have one training session that's focused in that area for the curriculum phase. So essentially the coaches should receive, we're going to send the newsletter out to all the registered coaches, should receive a copy of a training session for either 4v4, 7v7, 9v9, 11v11. But obviously as club leaders or club directors, if you want to push that out internally, you can go in here and utilize that individually yourself. So you can push your own personal email that goes out to all your coaches, maybe on a weekly basis. I generally send mine on a Sunday night. to the coaches. So they say, here's the practice plan for the week. This is what it's centered around. So obviously then we're putting everybody on a more consistent sort of methodology, you know, and then obviously when they go to the coaching education courses, they'll have a lot better understanding of what the play, practice, play is, but also at the same time, hopefully this stimulates a little bit of, you know, inquisitive, you know, sort of getting coaches to be a little bit more thoughtful about what they're doing. And then we can support them through the coaching education to help them have a better understanding of what they're doing on the field. So these, again, like I say, there's a training session for each phase. There is an overview manual that we've created centered around, got approval from USSF just to take a lot of the information from basically from the content of the grassroots courses, just looking, you know, some of the basics. What's the philosophy of play, practice, play? That's a critical component. What are the values? So essentially, you know, enjoyment, safety, development, respect. Those are our core values at the grassroots, you know, in terms of grassroots coaches and what we should be primarily focused on. Then we go into, you know, a basic style of play statement. Again, if you have your own, if you have directors that have already created and you're working off your own philosophy, great. But if not, obviously we want to try and provide that support as much as possible. So it's a general basic style of play statement. Then we build onto the six phases. The first 3 phases are centered around attacking. The second 3 phases of the curriculum are centered around defending. And it's all connected to the, for those of you that have been on the grassroots, we have the roadmaps that tie in into that obviously the leadership can share with their coaches if they feel appropriate. Essentially, there's just some general information then, why play, practice, play, a little bit about the philosophy of the structure of play, practice, play. And again, I know this is a quick summary, but over the period of the next, I'd say 3, you know, over the coming months, I can work with the clubs, you know, to sort of dissect some of this information and give you a better understanding of how to get it out to your clubs, how to get it out to your coaches on a more regular basis. So that's kind of the general manual and kind of the outline. Again, I'll be adding resources to here over, you know, over the coming months and I guess years, and hopefully it'll become a great resource center for you to be able to utilize with your clubs. Again, it kind of ties us into the grassroots philosophy or methodology. And hopefully then we can support you in terms of being able to provide that coaching education that gives the coaches a better opportunity to understand the methodology. The last one, I guess from this is, although these practices are primarily centered around the play, practice, play, I am looking at opportunities because we may have to regress. And one thing I was asked is if we can develop COVID training sessions where they may be socially distanced. So I'm currently working through some of those to try and get into this resource center. So those counties that are restricted, that do have, you know, social distancing requirements, you have an opportunity as well to be able to provide some of those sessions. So any questions centered around that? Again, it is a Google Classroom, so I'll be sending out a code that you can use as club leaders to engage. Like I say, it's primarily for the club leadership. It's not really for all of your coaches. You can take the resources that you need because, you know, for most coaches, it's going to be overbearing. There's lots of information that's going to be added to this, but it gives you a resource center that you can go collect information from and distribute to your coaches as you feel fit. So any questions? That's me.
No questions. Alan, that's outstanding. That's a great document. I'm really impressed with the work. Really, it's definitely a tool that we want everyone to take advantage of. And it's only a start. We're going to do a lot more, but this is a great start. Really, really good stuff.
All right.
Alan, I was wondering if Alan could also mention what he's doing currently now with the coaching courses moving forward, especially if club wanted to host a coaching course, a grassroots courses.
Yeah, so the grassroots is really, we're getting close to converting all of the content to a virtual situation. So we did a test with Annapolis and soccer club a couple of weeks back. And, you know, I think the in-person is very, very difficult, primarily because the situation with getting players and it being an experiential type learning environment. Obviously, there's the online course that coaches can go and take as an introductory, but those courses are delivered at them. You know, what we want is a lot of reflection from the coaches, and we need it to be live because a lot of the discussions is where the education is. So what we're trying to do is convert the slide decks into a virtual mode that allows for discussions, and then you know, hopefully utilize either a blended approach where we do a virtual classroom, essentially. So we do the classroom as a virtual, and then we can come to the field. However, we're also looking at opportunities to blend it, not blended, but create a virtual only. So we take a field session, record the field session, and then break the field session down, and then utilize that in a way of discussion so that we're still getting an opportunity to provide. So I'm hoping that's all in place by September. USSF, like I say, working on the slide deck, they predicted September as the release date. I am looking at possibly videoing. So if we can't do a in-person field session for those counted as that are maybe restricted, or you know, or we feel that it's too dangerous to bring players out, then, you know, obviously we can try and provide a fully virtual experience for the grassroots in person. For the D courses, that's a whole different ball game. Those do have to be in person. Fingers crossed, I've got the second meeting of the D course that was established back in, some of them started in December last year, January, and they're still in the middle. So I'm hoping they get a full season to reflect on, and then hopefully we can get them finished and finalized by November, December. As for new D licenses, again, they're looking at a blended approach, somewhat virtual, some in person. We do have the office, which is a great location to be able to manage. And I know some of the clubs that have their own facilities can kind of manage those environments. But, you know, that's the biggest challenge so far with coaching education. So, but if we can do a virtual classroom and then maybe an in-person field session, that's kind of where we're trying to get to. And hopefully that will be available this fall. So we'll release that information as well as soon as we have, you know, secured all the information and I guess the worksheets to be able to deliver it.
All right, great job, Alan. Appreciate the information. Let's go into questions, comments. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss? All right, this is a quick call today. By the way, Alan, when you started speaking, we had 175 people on the call. When you finished speaking, we had 25.
Of course.
Jimmy,
They're interesting.
Contrary to that, when Jimmy started.
I kind of thought I was going to force people out.
So, hey, Mark, it's Rick
Yes,
from
Ashley.
St. Mary's Soccer. So a lot of discussion going around on the WhatsApp, you know, about the interpretation of Montgomery County, and you know what that means as far as, you know, whether kids are going to be playing, whether they're going to be requiring kids to wear masks while playing, and then obviously a lot of back and forth with, you know, the unhealthy aspects of that. Do you have a feel for where do we stand with that interpretation of that, and what is the you know, what is the go forward plan? Is there going to be further discussions with Montgomery County? Are they reviewing that? Are they planning on sending something out to update, or where are we at?
Take on it. just like with everything else with the COVID, it changes almost daily. It was a huge step to go from high risk to medium risk. You got to remember that most of the people, unfortunately, that are making these decisions are not really soccer people. So, you know, they give us a little bit and then they take a little bit away. So they give us the medium risk, but they make us wear a mask. Enforcing, I don't, you know, I'm not gonna say that we want to say we're gonna break the law, but I don't know how they're gonna enforce it, to tell you the truth, because it is a health issue to have kids running around on a field with a mask on when they're trying to breathe. It makes no sense, but it's a step in the right direction as far as getting it from high risk to medium. My take on it is, like I said earlier, I think as the weeks go on, that the people who are making these decisions for our kids are going to realize, because of the pressure that we're putting on them, that that's another hurdle that they need to reinvent, because, you know, they gave us the medium risk, but they put a stipulation on it with a mask. So, you know, and by the way, it's not just soccer. It's the order was sports in general. So, which means, you know, my son, he's starting his lacrosse training on Sunday. I'm curious to see if they're going to be making those kids wear a mask, because it's going to be pretty tough to wear a helmet and a mask. I mean, it's going to be hard. But
Mark, can I just jump in here, because I think, again, and we need to try and search, and we had this conversation yesterday. I think a lot of it centered around what the Dr. Stoddard had said on the video, and you know, it almost, and again, we'll have to discuss and try and get more clarification on it. But I think his ultimate statement was around the executive order from the state based around masks or mask use. However, from the state executive order, we've had information in the past saying that, you know, while whilst playing sports, that's deemed as, you know, as dangerous, right? And therefore, you know, during sport, it was not required to wear a mask from the state executive order, right? So it really depends on how they read the state executive order, whether it's an actual, and I think this is what we need clarification on, whether Montgomery County have now made that a stipulation, okay, every sport, because he was talking about sports at that point. He's saying that every sport should wear a mask, and that would mean baseball, all the other sports that are in, you know, they're effectively playing. So from my understanding and what I saw of the video, he wasn't talking about a Montgomery County statement. He was talking about the state standard. And as far as I think a lot of the other counties see it, they see it as, you know, if you're playing sport, then you don't have to wear the mask, but obviously we have to wear the mask to and from. And I think that's how everybody else is interpreting it. So I think we do need clarity around, you know, what he said. Is it a Montgomery County stipulation, or is it just his interpretation of the state executive order on wearing masks? You know, so.
Mark and Alan, when we brought this up once before, and I reached out to Lieutenant Governor's office, and from their legal counsel at the state Lieutenant Governor's office, masks are not required while swimming or engaging in other physical activities where wearing a mask would make it difficult to breathe. That was quote unquote from the legal counsel of the Lieutenant Governor's office. That's what we got the last time that I wrote to them and asked them that we're trying to find out what the requirements are regarding soccer teams now being required to wear masks.
So essentially, if anybody says I'm struggling to breathe, whilst they're playing, you don't have to wear a mask, you know, and that's the way that we, you know, and again, that's where we've got to try and search to try and find some more clarification. Have they imposed that as a mandate in Montgomery County, or is it just that gentleman's interpretation of the mask use?
Hey, this is Dan at OBGC. Yeah. Lori pointed this out in the chat the other day, I think from Lori from Potomac. I don't know if she's on here. I haven't checked. But for that, and this goes for anybody who's coming in to play matches there, they need to supposedly have documentation that they have a medical risk, like say asthma or something like that. So to Mark's point, I mean, it's going to probably take some time but I mean, oh, I just happen to have in my back pocket my driver's license and my mask card, you know? I mean, so they're going to have to, you know, iron that out a little bit and clarify.
Well, and again, back to the medical information, you can't release
Yeah.
that information, so
I
there's
know.
no way of
Exactly.
so it's void essentially, you know,
Yeah.
because they can't go down that road.
Right.
So
I think it's going to come to matches where you're going to have to communicate ahead of time. And if it is a match, like say you're playing in NCSL, for example, and you say, well, look, we have a kid here that has medical reasons or something like that. I don't know, but I'm just, you know, at some point they're going to have to iron that detail out.
My guess is they'll rethink it as they hear feedback from people and realize that it's not a practical and could be a harmful choice to make.
And bottom line is interpretation. I mean,
So-
Alan interprets it one way. You
Right.
might interpret it another way. I don't know even if they know what the right answer is.
So just from the call that I was on with USSF, so Dr. Campios, who's the USSF chief medical officer, when he was talking about masks, essentially, if there is a mandate to wear masks, then the players must have, must discuss it with their pediatrician. So is it going to pose a potential threat, you know, if they wear it? So it's kind of the other way, you know, if you go, I guess if you went to your doctor and the doctor turned around and said, no way, you shouldn't be wearing a mask, then, you know, then they can't mandate it. And then it's back to, well, I've now got a letter to say that I don't have to wear a mask, right? So again, it could be centered around that situation where, you know, they if they are required, then, you know, that's the first thing that you should be looking at, because the players, and I'll look into that as well. I'll share it in the WhatsApp group. You know, what is the protocol if they do have to wear the mask during the games? What should we be doing prior to that as clubs to make sure that they're, you know, that we're safe and obviously they're safe. So,
Not to mention the many different types of masks.
correct.
You know, you're gonna.
And a lot of it was centered around the,
Kids have put
yeah.
on.
Well, that was a requirement, right? I think I sent that maybe one of the calls we did previously. We talked about the fact that if the mask creates a visual impairment, so it could impair their vision, it poses a danger. So it becomes, again, a dangerous object. Obviously, you can't wear screens because of plastic. Those are danger, you know, so things like that we have to be very, very careful of. I guess some of them have plastic things that are attached. You know, they can be. It can be a dangerous object. So we just got to make sure that we get the guidelines on it if we have to go down that road.
Hi, this is Jen with Paragon. I have a question. So we're struggling with whether or not we should require masks during practice, and we were getting every indication that even within practices, we needed to require our players to wear masks. And so we did so reluctantly, and we're very nervous about that because we have a lot of concerns around players not being able to breathe. At the end of practice, we typically do running drills, and we just spread the kids out and allowed them to run without a mask, because I just can't even imagine kids running a lot and hard with a mask on. I would pass out personally.
Yeah.
And then secondly, so, you know, should we be requiring that? And then, like you've all mentioned already, there is a lot of interpretation around this. And so we rent from the city of Gaithersburg, and they just sent out a notice that said that they're not going to require masks during games. And so then, you know, we're all within Montgomery County. So how does that work exactly? Do we just follow by the field that we're using?
I would say that is the last. I mean, it depends on which jurisdiction is above, but essentially, if it's not, and that's why I'm saying what Dr. Stoddard was talking about, is it an official mandate or is he talking about the statewide executive order? And if it is, then it's down to his interpretation.
Right.
However, what Gaithersburg has come out and said, if they don't have to, then you're following those protocols because you're renting the facilities from them. So I would say Gaithersburg has the say, unless there's an official writing from Montgomery County government that says all facilities must be wearing a mask during sports. And I don't think there's anything in writing other than the conversation that was had on the video.
Hey, Alan.
Yeah.
This is Egan. Just to clarify that a little bit. So Montgomery County did release an amended executive order on the 24th of August, I believe, which is
Okay.
what that video meeting was in reference to. So they have a weekly kind of update meeting. That meeting was kind of in reference to their amended executive order, which does relate to, and I'll read it exactly. I can find it again now, but it does say that all people participating in sports do need to comply with the face mask.
Yes, but there was an exception that Flo had referenced, and it reads exactly how the state order it reads, right. Which is if you're swimming or playing in a sport that causes a bona fide safety risk, then you're exempted from that. My takeaway was that, well, if you can't breathe, then I would say that's a bona fide safety risk. And so we don't have to wear a mask. But then this video came out yesterday and it made everyone nervous, I think.
I think in my world, if I'm coaching or managing a team and I have contradicting information on both sides, local, state, county, everything different. And the most important thing for my kids is safety. I would, as a coach or manager, make a decision about the mask on a, team by team, practice by practice session. And I'm not mandating anything from the state. I'm saying that personally, what I probably would do if I felt that the kids couldn't breathe in a training session or couldn't breathe running, and I deemed it as a coach or as a manager deemed it dangerous, I would make the call then, and I would probably make a decision not for them to wear the mask, because the worst thing is we don't want these kids getting sick. But that's my personal, and I think take it a step further, I'm not so sure, because there's so much contradiction. I'm not so sure it's really enforceable anyway. I mean, if a police officer pulled up at a practice and said, "Hey, aren't you guys supposed to be wearing a mask?" And you're saying, "Yes, but it's also a safety issue. These kids can't breathe with a mask." I'm sure it's not going to be an issue where there's going to be mask police.
Well, I think we also have to take into account as well is the weather. Right. Yeah. Okay. Wearing a mask, but if you're in 85, 90 degree heat with a mask, that's also another factor that comes into play as well. Right. So like you say, I think the safety is a critical one, right? You've got to make a decision based on what you feel is safe for the players. And I think from what I've read from the state executive order, I think during, aerobic sports, it's deemed as a danger more so than potentially wearing the mask. So.
Yeah, I honestly don't believe that a team of 22 players are going to be thrown in a county jail because they didn't wear a mask.
You can pay the bond if they do.
And I would
get that in writing.
And I would argue,
I'd like that in writing, please.
I would argue again that as a coach or a manager, if the situation arises that the mask police come out, I would argue that my players can't breathe with a mask on. And my interpretation of the law, which is confusing in itself, is that safety trumps everything. But
I hope there's a clarification before kids start playing? Because clearly Gaithersburg coming out with their position on it is sort of the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Unless we all go to Gaithersburg and play.
They'd probably love that.
I think that's the next part in the battle, right, with Montgomery County and the clarity. You know, some of the other states have had it as well, where the guidelines have just been so inconsistent that it's really a stepping stone. You get past one restriction, then you're on to the next one, you're on to the next one. So we got to keep, again, hounding the city officials and just making sure that, you know, that we continue to work for a common sense, you know, approach to, you know, getting back to normal. Because I think, especially by the governor's response yesterday to trying to get kids back in school, right, there's this, I guess, fight between those people that just want to completely shut down versus those that want to fight to get us back up and running and going. And so it's this toing and throwing back and forward, and that's essentially what we're living through on a day-to-day basis. So
the good news is stay in tune with the WhatsApp app site, because we're going to keep you updated, and also on our regular MSYSA site. You guys continue to talk. I have to go to another meeting now, but I wanted to say thanks for everyone who participated. Continue your discussion if you like. And I appreciate Jimmy Graham coming on, and Ashley from St. Mary's. I appreciate you being on the call today. Bye, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
We did, just so you know, the office did receive a letter from the Soccerplex, from Matt Liber, about the mask requirements at the Soccerplex. So he said, you know, yesterday, Montgomery County made a clarifying statement regarding the mask requirements in relation to sports being played at the Soccerplex and all other facilities within the county. The county has stated that masks must be worn by all individuals, including players, coaches, officials, etc., during all sports activities, including games and matches. The only exceptions to this rule are for individuals with documented underlying medical conditions that prevent them from wearing a mask. As such, all users of the Soccerplex will be required to wear masks at all times while at the facility, except for those individuals subject to exemption listed above. While the Soccerplex strongly disagrees with this rule and believes it poses a real health and safety risk for players, we are still subject to its enforcement. As we did with the reclassification of soccer at medium risk, we will continue to work on county officials to encourage them to change this rule. Till such time, when a change is made, please communicate with your players, coaches, parents, and others interested parties of the mask policy at the Soccerplex and all other fields within Montgomery County.
Yeah, so what I would advise the players is just go to your pediatrician, get a
Yeah,
note,
get a
and
note.
wear a mask.
Primatene inhalers are going to be flying off the shelves.
But you know, that's not that easy, because doctors that I know are not taking appointments or coming there unless you have a COVID test.
Right.
So it's a process to get anything nowadays.
Right.
So it's tough. Hopefully they will see that this is not a practical decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the next part of the agenda, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
the next part of the battle to get clarification on, you know. And I think ultimately it's going to go back and forth from, you know, from the state level to Montgomery County level, right? And so you know, he was talking about how there's this, I guess, across the country,
Disagreement.
an argument or disagreement as to whether soccer is high or medium risk. I'm like, well, I'd say 90% deem it as a medium risk. So I don't know where that's a fair argument, you know. So, however, you know, obviously, there are challenges, not for sure,
Right.
you know.
I'm curious, and this is something that Dan said, how is the attrition rate for spring, fall soccer? Does anybody know? Or anecdotally?
I think, you know, I think if you look at a true recreational level, is where it's heavily impacted.
Right.
I think where it's parent coaches, I think from a travel level, and going off just the conversations that I've had, maybe, 70% to 80% return for a lot of, I'd say general, but the problem is you've got 80%, you still might have another 20% of those 80 that have committed that are still hesitant to return. So there's kind of another knock-on effect, so, and also we got to look at the differences with, travel-based, because it's they're making a payment and a commitment. That commitment was made back in the winter prior to COVID. And so a lot of people got credits, therefore they're going to register because otherwise they lose their credit. So that's almost kept people into, making a decision to return for a lot, so I think that's had a bigger impact on travel versus recreational, where you're just purchasing for the season. It's okay, they can miss fall and hey, we'll be back in spring, so I think they see it that way. So I think that's overall impacted the numbers between the two. I think travel, you'll find, is pretty high return. Recreational is where we really, we've taken a big back step, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I'm hoping Montgomery County will kind of sort this all out, because I know some of the clubs that were waiting or possibly canceling their rec programs in the fall are now, that they heard that it's back, soccer's back to a medium risk, that they're now opening their registrations, right?
Yeah.
So, but now you got the mask piece put on top of that. Does that then have another downward spiral,
Yeah.
Yeah, can I plug in real quick, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool beans. I just took off the mute. So yeah, from what it just shocks me that we go through the whole process of having soccer accepted as a medium level sport. And with the mask mandate, I thought that information, the scientific background, all the research in the past, how many months have we been going through this?
Yeah.
That it's been detrimental and not healthy for kids.
Yep.
Masks when playing. I mean, I have a hard time coaching. Obviously, we've all been through it, and I laugh when Alan was like saying the same thing and having to take the mask down in order to breathe, right? Yeah, we're getting older. So I just don't understand why MoCo is behind in that research, or I mean, it's not something new. We've been through this for a while.
Getting it, Jeff.
That they need to look into it, or we need to continue to pressure and say, it's not so healthy to run with a mask on.
And I think some of the difference also, Jill, is that athletes that run and do training for whether it's marathons or what have you, that wear specialized type masks to help them, build up their diaphragm and their breathing capacity.
Breathe through the nose, right?
As opposed to a cloth mask that a kid is putting on to play 90 minutes in. And that's going to be soaking wet after 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, good point too.
Yeah, there are very specialized masks for runners and what have you, but those are not the masks that the general public in this situation are actually wearing.
Yeah, because I wondered about that whole bona fide, reason for kids, being that there's privacy issues, there's HIPAA rules.
Absolutely.
All that included. I don't know. I'm just kind of shocked. It's kind of like, hey, yeah, you can go shopping, but you don't have any money. It's like, we'll let you go shopping. You tell your daughter, especially daughters. Hey,
I tell my wife that all the time. I don't understand what the
you can feel, right? Oh Lord, I'm like, we're all excited, like, woohoo, we can play.
Yeah. It just seems like just a long series of Montgomery County taking the outlier approach. And it's a shame.
Yeah, I feel the same, and I've just been so busy. I haven't been able to follow much of what's going outside of my own home and my practices. But talking about attrition and looking at that, it's been a lot of work. I've got to do more work for those that are want to remain in phase 1 and those that are willing, to play and have contact. And now with the mask mandate, it's kind of like, all right, we're in the mask now until we figure out what MoCo decides. But at this point, it just makes no sense, even with the 50-person thing.
It's just frustrating that other sports were able to play all this time without them, unless they were in the dugout or, and now all of a sudden you put soccer back into that group and now everybody has to wear one.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that either in terms of why all sports. I thought it was just going to be soccer, but from what Dr. Stoddard had said, all sports, and that's what I gathered from reading or watching the video, was that it's required. From what you had just read, Flo, that's what I gathered. That's why I told my teams, I said, you got to wear a mask. And so we would do water breaks and little pauses for them to take their masks off and breathe. And just keep them socially distanced anyway, so they didn't have to really worry about it. Long ball. Switching the play. All right. But yeah, so and that's the thing, like trying to figure out, all right, do I even bother having home games in MoCo? We're looking outside just so we don't have to, I don't want to get fined or lose my license or risk anything at this point. And like I said, we've got police officers as parents on our, FBI, Secret Service, and it's interesting to hear, they're like, we haven't heard anything about, like you say, enforcing. Who's going to be out there enforcing? Are we required as a club to be like, okay, I have a parent that's going to count how many people, especially in public parks, it's a public park.
The referees aren't.
No, I was just learning from Jimmy. It's like, so how many, and this was really good that Jimmy was on. I don't know if he's still on, but
yes,
hey, Jimmy, it was really helpful because, understanding, because I have some of my O1 players that reffed, and I'm going to start, searching out some others that, didn't go to school because they're virtual and they're at home and probably not happy campers, but at least to get more of them involved. And take use of their time while they're at home. So I'll reach out to them as well.
Absolutely. We appreciate all the help.
Yeah, I may be joining you.
Just as an additional point of reference, I know obviously, I can't see any scenario under which Montgomery County is going to be able to completely enforce their mask wearing mandate, but obviously they're not the only county that has it. Baltimore City also has it.
Baltimore City, okay.
Yeah, but I do know that PG County, Baltimore City for sure, maybe Baltimore County, they do actually have inspectors that travel around to fields, because I have a friend who's in charge of a sports league
Department.
and just recently received a letter from the city saying, this is your first warning. If you continue to disregard our face mask requirement, your entire league will be shut down and everything you've paid for all of your fields for the rest of the year will be basically not refunded. So there is some precedent, and some places do certainly have some inspectors that are traveling around to the fields to check on compliance.
Hey, Nathan, let me just mention something for people coming both in Montgomery County and out. And that is that, just think, it just takes one person. To Mark's point, there's a lot of people that put a lot of effort into getting it, readjusted to more of a realistic status for the sport. So all it takes is somebody from social media, for example, and Trish knows this, at Bullis School, they had an example of somebody finding out through social media not wearing a mask. That could torpedo everything from Montgomery County if people don't follow that. So it's really important whether you're in Cecil County, I guess Rick left, but St. Mary's, or somebody coming into the county, or if you're right in Rockville or something, that you follow these, because to Alan's point, eventually it will start to catch up. So you just have to be aware of that, that you might think everything's okay, or 16 of your 18 players are wearing a mask, but it only takes somebody to post it, boom, that club, that gets around to somebody, and then it goes from there.
Right.
I agree. And that's fear. Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, it would be very easy for an inspector to go around to the 24 fields at the soccerplex and be able to see people are not abiding. which is unfortunate because it should never be used for that.
Yeah, exactly. You would hope that, you know, we'd be able to count and make sure that the parents, one parent per team, you know, obviously 11v11 is going to be difficult, but where are the boundaries? You know, what if people are there on the baseball field, but their kids are at the jungle gym?
Yeah.
You know, it's like they have nothing to do with us, but they're there because we're at a local park kind of idea.
Yeah.
Was the other issue was, you know, while I'm doing all the EDP games, you know, it's like, okay, if we play in MoCo, heads up, these are our rules. I'm assuming it's upon us too to let them know you're coming into MoCo. If we're going to play here, you got to wear a mask when you play. We can't have more than 50 people. You know, and that's where it's helpful. So Dan, you were saying too, like Baltimore City, PG, they have mask mandates. Is it St. Mary's? Oh, they couldn't even play. They had to be out. What was St. Mary's?
St. Mary's cannot host matches.
They can't host. Okay. Just so, you know, I mean, obviously when I write to them, they're like, hey, with this game, they can fill me in on their rules. It's just a longer process, but good to know.